what I've found in my 21 years of life is that the paradoxical foundation of all good relationships is the ability to be alone. Now, that sounds very paradoxical. Like, what do you mean? Like, if I get good at being alone, how is that going to make my relationships better? And here's why. We have a tendency to cling to things that make us feel good. When, people go out and they drink, they cling to that feeling of that buzz that makes them feel good. When we meet someone and that person brings a good feeling into our life, we cling to that person. And now it's not bad to feel connection with someone, but true connection can't be birthed from a state of clinging, saying that in order for me to be whole, to be complete, to be filled with joy and love, I need you in my life and I need you to act a certain way and be a certain way at all times for me to be okay. Right? That's not a very secure place to be in. And one of the hardest things that I've come to accept, but it's also been one of the most freeing and liberating things for me to accept, is that I don't need anyone else to be a certain way or act a certain way for me to feel joy. Now, that doesn't mean I don't appreciate when people are nice to me or when I'm experiencing wonderful connections. In fact, the moment that you stop trying to control other people and control outcomes in your life, you find that other people end up treating you really wonderfully and you form great connections. Because let's flip the tables here. I'm talking about, potentially you or me being in a relationship with someone else. But now let's say that you're the person who's being pursued by someone else and someone else wants to be in a relationship with you. And there's two people who want to be in a relationship with you. The first person says, I need you in my life. You bring me so much happiness. I need you because you bring me happiness. And that sounds nice at first, but when you're with that person, they constantly expect you to be a certain way, act a certain way, say certain things in order for them to feel okay and for them to feel happy. And now let's go to the other person. The other person says, hey, I really enjoy connecting with you, but they show up in happiness. They don't expect things from you. Well, not expect things, but you know what I mean? They don't try to force outcomes with you. They don't need you to be a certain way. They are radiating their own happiness. They have their own hobbies, their own interests, their own passions, their own path that they're walking, and they're inviting you to be a part of that. That is a much more magnetic energy to be in. If you've ever heard about the law of attraction, the paradox is when you need nothing, you attract everything. When you have the ability in this present moment to carry a calm mind and a content, open heart, that is the most magnetic state to be in. The law of attraction or developing magnetism, developing radiance, developing a sense of joy and completeness has nothing to do with fancy affirmations that you shout in the mirror or anything like that. All it has to do with is, can you gently appreciate life and appreciate your own company? That is such a magnetic state to be in. And I'll tell you, life gets a whole lot more beautiful when you can love being with yourself. A lot of people say like, oh, I don't like being by myself, but you're not by yourself, you're with yourself. You go to the gym with yourself. You go run errands with yourself. If you can appreciate being with yourself, then you can enjoy every relationship that you go into, whether it stops, whether it starts, if it ends, or if the dynamic changes in any relationship, friendships, romantic relationships, anything. You will be so much happier if you can enjoy your own company. And I'm not saying that the other person doesn't bring tremendous value into your life. Relationships are the most enriching thing we can experience as human beings. And so I'm not saying to avoid relationships. I'm not saying to pull back. I'm not saying that you shouldn't interact with people who bring boatloads of joy and happiness into your life. But don't put yourself in a situation where you aren't capable of being content being with yourself. Now, it is a human need to have relationships, to have connections, but it's not a human need to have other people act and be a certain way in order for you to be okay on the inside. And when you find that the more that you can be okay on the inside, just gently content, just going to run errands, going about your day-to-day life, doing things alone, but you're just gently content, you're just in the flow of life, you will find that state attracts the most magnificent and amazing relationships in your life. And isn't that kind of a funny paradox too? Like, don't you notice that when you do feel lonely and you're like, oh, I kind of want to text my ex, or like you feel lonely and you want to like reach out to someone to kind of aid that feeling of loneliness, that people tend to kind of pull away from you. They kind of like pull back more versus when you're not even seeking anything, when you're just content, when you're happy, when you're just kind of doing the things that you like to do. That's when people randomly invite you out, or they text you, they reach out, hey man, how you doing, what's going on, you know. I think that's like a really amazing thing to observe about the way that the universe works, and observe the law of attraction, because the law of attraction is not only the law of attracting, it's also the law of repulsion. You not only attract the frequency that you're operating on, you repulse anything that is not of that frequency. So if you're in a state of joy and contentment and peace, inner peace, which is really our most natural state to be in, when you're just residing in that state, peacefully enjoying the moments that are unfolding in front of you, that state not only attracts healthy relationships into your life, but it also repulses away unhealthy connections, unhealthy dynamics, unhealthy relationships. And on the other hand, don't you find that when you're kind of a little desperate, you're in that seeking, clinging state, like, please be with me because I need you in my life and I'll be incomplete without you. And that kind of state of being where you're clinging, you're attaching, you're trying to push or pull something, that has a very kind of repulsive effect. Not like that you're a repulsive person. Oh, sorry. Not that you're a repulsive person, but just the frequencies of energy are misaligned, and there's kind of, it's like when you try to push two magnets together and they repulse. You see what I mean? And so anyways, this is something that I've learned in my 21 years of life, which is try sinking into the discomfort of being alone, and realize that being alone is different than being lonely. And a lot of the greatest minds, the greatest engineers, the greatest athletes did a lot of their work and built themselves up in solitude. Because if you can be with yourself, then you can also be with anyone else in a state of joy and in a state of love. It's really the stable foundation through which amazing relationships and connections blossom in your life. And I'm not saying to be antisocial. I'm not saying that you shouldn't love and appreciate and feel a sense of connection to people in your life. You absolutely should. But also feel that towards yourself. Feel that sense of love and connection and joy being with yourself and being with life. Because realize that even as I'm speaking to this camera alone in my car, I'm still interacting with life. And so even when you find yourself alone, you're never really alone. When you find yourself walking down in a forest path and there's no one else around you, you're still breathing in and breathing out. And the trees are breathing in and breathing out with you. As we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide, they breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen. You're still looking at the moon and the stars, and you're interacting with life. There's a great quote, and I'll finish off with this point. There was a mystic and a poet named Rumi, very famous. You might have heard of him or some of his poems. He was a Sufi mystic, and he said, when you find yourself alone, it's because God has sent everyone else away to be with just you at that moment. I think that's such a beautiful quote, because whether you believe in God or not, or you're just kind of like you believe in the universe, or you believe in nature, or just being with life, it's so true. Because again, even when you find yourself alone, you're never really alone. I'm in a car that other people built. I'm wearing clothes that other people made. You know, you're always in a relationship with life. And so even if you're not directly in a relationship with another human being, embrace being alone, and you will find that you're actually never alone. And also, when you embrace being alone, that becomes the stable foundation through which amazing relationships and connections can blossom in your life. Because you're in your natural state. You're just being yourself. You're being magnetic. You're being joyful. You're being content. You're not trying to prove anything or push anything or cling to anything. That's a very powerful state to be in. A good practice for that could just be going for a walk alone, going for a nice nature walk. Or when you find yourself alone, just focusing on your breath, becoming a little more present, a little more meditative. That can be really helpful as well. So, hope you appreciate this video. This is, again, all these videos that I make are really also more so just advice to myself. And have a wonderful, wonderful day, evening, wherever you are.